Welcome back to the Life After Caltech podcast, the podcast where current and former Caltech students interview alumni to learn about their unique post-graduation pathways and how they found their own success. I'm Claire Ellison, a current sophomore at Caltech, and my co-host is
Mason Smith, I'm Page House alum, class of 2009, and current Caltech trustee. Today, our guest is Nick Goeden, who's also a Page House alum, also graduate year of 2009. We thought that Nick would be a great guest for this podcast because he has both an atypical and somewhat very typical Caltech experience. He has achieved a lot of professional success, founding multiple biotherapeutics companies, which he'll talk about during the interview. But his path to that was not the kind of linear path that we all, might hope and expect, right? I think, he'll talk about how, he didn't get into grad school the first time around and, the kind of bumps in the road it took for him to eventually find his footing, which I think is pretty instructive and pretty interesting to listen to and might resonate with a lot of techers today.
So if you want to hear about an experience that was not all sunshine and daisies, this is the perfect podcast to listen to. I had a beautiful time with this interview, and I hope you will enjoy it too. So with no further ado, here's our interview with Nick. So I will let you introduce yourself. I feel like you are well more qualified to do it than I am. So please introduce yourself, Nick.
My name is Nick Goeden. I was year 2009 Caltech undergrad. I was in Page House and I was a biology major. I'm currently Chief Technology Officer for a biotech company called Capsida Biotherapeutics, which is a gene therapy company developing neurological treatments for two indications. One is a pediatric epilepsy, which was recently cleared by the FDA to move into clinical trials, which I'm really excited about. And the second is for Parkinson's disease associated with mutations in GBA1. So I've been at that company for 6 years, leading a variety of things from platform development, data science, and preclinical research.
It's so interesting. But I will get into the very relevant stuff to the podcast is because you were recommended for your unique perspective on Caltech. So how can you elaborate on how your view from your time here at Caltech, since I am currently sitting in my dorm room, has affected the larger context of your life?
Yeah, it's interesting. Caltech was a transformative experience in many ways for me. I think I developed some incredibly close friendships with people that I'm still friends with today and would like to see more often than I do, but that's not their fault. I think it was incredibly impactful in my career, and it was also both positively and mostly negatively impactful on my mental health and personal development. It was not something I was prepared for. It was not something I ever planned on doing and going to Caltech. It was something I sort of applied to on a whim. In fact, I wasn't planning on applying to Caltech. I was at a recruitment camp for basketball. And I was applying to Division II schools. I was looking to get athletic scholarships, and I grew up in LA, lived in LA at the time. And somebody at the camp was like, "Hey, your SAT score is pretty good. Have you ever thought about applying to Caltech? It's Division III. There's no scholarships, but you do well there." And I remember going home thinking this is a waste of time, but sure, why not? Let's give it a shot. And then ended up getting in. I opened the letter, which was this tiny normal letter size. It was not a large envelope. And so when it came in the mail, I was like, okay, great. I didn't get in. It's a small envelope. That sounds wonderful. And then I opened it. I was like, oh, fuck. I got into Caltech. I guess I'm going there. And yeah, we can go into more detail in any of those different avenues you would like about why it was positive and negative and transformative for my life, but it was certainly a unique experience for me. I'm just gonna go straight to a silly story for my Caltech experience that actually fits well with this topic. Do you guys still do pre-frosh weekends? It's now discotheque. Okay, thank you, moderator Mason, for saying that the cool kids call pre-frosh weekend discotheque. My moment where I realized, oh shit, I've made a terrible mistake, was pre-frosh weekend. like before I even got to rotation, I realized that this is not going to turn out well for me. They had this team building activity where they paired people up into groups of 5. It was at some retreat center that had a pool. They gave you like a bucket of trash and you were supposed to build a boat out of it. And I convinced my team to build a pirate ship, and we spent most of our time putting a theme song together. And at some point we looked around and everyone else was like really intently focused on the engineering aspect of the shipbuilding. And these 2 kids that were obviously phenotypically Caltechers were walking down the hallway and debating to each other, but what about the structural integrity? And I remember just having this like moment of cognitive dissonance where like, this is my first exposure to Caltech and my fellow classmates, and I do not belong here in any sense of the word. And I regretted my life choices in those moments, but I also felt like I had a bit of an ego. It's like, okay, I got in, I decided to go here, like, fuck it, let's just try to make the best of it.
I like that story. I like your priorities. Like, obviously I see why, like, damn, this might not have been the right choice, but I don't know. I guess trying to think. When I think of like behaviors like that, I don't think of like, I think of the houses and like how the houses would be like confront these type of like a boat building contest. Like, you're in Page, I don't like, and I'm in Ricketts. I don't think we would ever successfully make a boat. I think we'd be much more likely to successfully create a boat by ourselves than ever being paired with like each of us. But yeah.
Well, I mean, has the housing system changed in the, like, I don't know, feels like 5 decades since I've been an undergrad. But like when I was going into pre-frosh weekends, like the Page House kids absolutely would have played Pirates of the Caribbean and tried to sink other kids' ships.
Mm-hmm.
And the Blacker kids would have been worried about structural engineering, and the Ricketts kids would have jumped in the pool. Like, is that still the case?
I would say that is exactly still the case. I remember for Ricketts, we had inter-house sports, and we had this really good strategy for dodgeball, and it was to piss off the Flems. And we would like, it was like this weird like goal that we had, like, just to line up with our heads facing down because they can't hit our heads, and like they'd like, I don't know, they get fouled, and it was just like, so yeah, the houses I would say have not changed in the past 10-15 years or 5 decades, as you so said.
Pissing off Fleming kids is a quality pastime for other houses.
So you did play sports while you were here?
Briefly. I played for the first year and I did not enjoy any of it. And like I felt like I was drowning from the second I started coursework at Caltech. And you know, there was a school of thought that was imparted upon me that having an outlet would be beneficial, and that like playing sports would be beneficial, allow me to kind of cope with that feeling or that sensation of drowning in the academics at Caltech. That wasn't my experience. Like it was just another thing that added to that sense of drowning. And so I stopped after my freshman year, and I wouldn't say that I felt like I was drowning any less, but I wasn't drowning more. So I think it was sort of a neutral experience for me.
That makes a lot of sense. I had a brief stint with sports, and I feel like even when like I stopped playing, the time just filled up. There was like, I thought I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have 2 to 3 more hours a day, and all of a sudden that was just simply not the case. So I definitely see where you're coming from with that. I also wanted to ask, you definitely, like you said that coming to Caltech definitely affected your mental health, and you had this feeling of drowning. What specifically would you say caused that, and is there any advice that you would give to like not experience that, or is that just like a fundamental part of Caltech?
I don't think it needs to be. I think it sort of is a fundamental part of Caltech. I think some people are able to cope with it better than others. And I think there's good reasons for that. I think I was ill-suited to Caltech from the start. I had a very, very rigidly structured upbringing with very, very little independence and autonomy. And then I arrived at Caltech, and it was just this sandbox of opportunities and obligations. And I went from having every second of my life planned out for me on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I was always very busy. Like I would start my day at like 5:30 for morning practice, and I would end my day at like 9 p.m. between after school sports and homework and stuff. So, I didn't find I was busier at Caltech, but I found that there was no guided pathway for me. And the sandbox nature of Caltech, coupled with everything being really hard, made it very difficult to kind of navigate it autonomously and know what I should be doing. And I think that manifested in a lack of understanding of what the right path for me was until very late in my academic career. I started Caltech as pre-med and very quickly went away from pre-med, not because I don't think I would have enjoyed medical school, but simply because my grades were so shitty that I would never get in. By the end of my freshman year, I was like, there's no chance I'll ever get into med school. So let's just pivot to something that I might actually be able to pursue as a career. And so I think Caltech can be very overwhelming, as all college can be overwhelming, because many kids start very structured and move to a less structured environment. But most people find their way by nature of aptitude. But when you feel like you suck at everything academically, it feels like there isn't a path that's right for you. And that was one of the things I struggled with a lot, is just trying to figure out what I should do and ultimately defaulting to what I could survive as opposed to what I might find engaging. And I think that's something Caltech could do better. Biology likes constraints. Like nothing biologically enjoys an unconstrained environment. Like by nature, we add constraints to ourselves. And I think Caltech could do a better job of providing guided pathways to students who aren't sure what they want to do, so that they have some structure in which to operate while they're trying to get used to the rigors of that school.
How do you feel like you fumbled around? I guess it seems like it was mostly that you feel that during like within your major. And like what constraints would you feel like would be useful? Because like I guess like some argument that Caltech could make is like, oh, they gave you pass fail, which honestly, hot take, I feel like that almost makes it more unconstrained, and it was more distressing for me in a way, because now I had a weird sense of doing my work and like not, and like trying to balance that. So what would you recommend, and how did you navigate it?
Yeah, I would agree that administration thinks pass fail gives you an opportunity to adapt before grades start kicking in. But I didn't find that to be helpful. I found that it just punted the consequences down the road. It didn't give you an opportunity really to find a different path. It's not like you're on pass fail for core and then you come off of it. Like you're on pass fail and then you come off pass fail and you're still in core. And there isn't a non-core path for, I think, any of the majors at Caltech. Like you're taking core either way. So like if you suck in the first 2 quarters, you're gonna suck for 3 more. And so yeah, I think that's one aspect of it, that there needs to be a different way of outlining to students that there are other paths besides succeed at core and go into a major. And if you like, it's not just surviving core that matters. Like you have to find something that you actually find interesting and leads to a useful career path.
Yes, I remember, I don't know, I went through core and I was very not instructed by my upperclassmen, but it was like, you should, the common phrase, piff that shit, right? So I definitely executed that, and then I realized that all this material is building on itself, and then here I am, 3rd term. So definitely I do believe that Caltech needs to find a better way to structure it. They're actually trying something new. I probably won't get into that, but they're trying out some new things. But I definitely wish I had a lot more guidance within my major, especially since I'm by myself, all by my lonesome, taking these classes with grad students, right? But I don't like, do you feel like you're the being left to this environment was probably the pith of your time at Caltech, or were there other factors to your time at Caltech that really had you hit the rock bottom? Or did you just not hit rock bottom at all? Were you just flying through, but it doesn't quite seem that way.
Oh, geez, I hope that was rock bottom. I definitely don't want to experience more misery than I experienced in those 4 years at Caltech. Um, I think it's a lot of things. I think I started too young. I turned 18 right as I was starting undergrad. I think I would have benefited a lot from a gap year before starting. I think I would have benefited a lot from an opportunity to talk to folks in biology who did something besides become distinguished professors of biology. My freshman advisor is deceased now. I can talk shit about him. Eric Davidson was my freshman advisor, incredibly distinguished biology professor. And the first time I talked to him, he opened with like, "I don't think Caltech is the right place for you." And it's like, I mean, thanks, but the fuck am I supposed to do about it now? Like, I'm here. Let me just go back in time and not make a terrible life choice. Thanks, bud. Like, that's not a useful thing to say to a freshly 18-year-old child who's trying to figure out how to survive a difficult experience. So I think this is a great thing you're doing, in my opinion. Like, folks need exposure to people who survived and thrived, not survived and were miserable coming out of Caltech. And I find it difficult to regret going to Caltech, given how my life turned out. But at the time, I felt like there was no positive outcome possible after Caltech. And so, that is something that as I look back on my life, I wish I could go back in time and just like share with 18-year-old version of me. They're like, the stakes aren't as high as you think they are, first of all. Second of all, it looks like there is no positive outcome from this, but there's a million positive outcomes that are going to come from this. Like, don't worry so much about that. And provide an opportunity to talk to other people who had taken divergent career paths within this field besides academia.
I really, really relate to what you said about the professor and like their support. I remember it was my this fall's midterms, and I had a little bit of a little crash out. I had a little panic moment. I emailed my professor and I'm like, I don't know if this is right for me. I'm a little freaked out. Can you give me advice? What if I rewrite my schedule? He's like, maybe you should actually pick a major that you resonate with more. Maybe this isn't for you. And I was like, this is exactly what I need to hear when I feel at rock bottom. So yeah, I feel like sadly your experience is a little more universal than that we would hope. But I do have a question. It's like you did find success post Caltech, which is very exciting. Great to hear as a current student. Do you feel like you would have found that success in another place? And if not, what did Caltech give you other than pure misery for 4 years that set you up for it?
Yeah. I would have found success elsewhere, but a different kind. I don't think I would have experienced the unique kind of career path that I've experienced without Caltech. And I honestly don't know whether that's a good thing or not. I think it depends on how you define good and what you want out of your life. I have had a unique life so far, and I therefore maybe have defined uniqueness as a positive, but I don't know that that's always the case. Anyway, I took a path of entrepreneurship, and I think the most important trait you can have in entrepreneurship is resilience. And there is nothing like 4 years at Caltech to provide you with that as a skill, which I do think is a skill and not a talent. At some point, I was like 3 years into my startup, and we had this offsite team building for leadership. And our leadership team at the time was me and my co-founder, who were 35 and like 2.5 years out of academia and had never had an industry job besides this. But all of a sudden, like, this entire $50 million investment is on our shoulders to make successful. And then you look around the room and it's like old white guys who have been in pharma for 20 years, an old white lady who's been in pharma for 20 years, and the person running the offsite who was like a degree in psych and was trying to get people to talk to each other. And at some point, like, we were talking about our experience in this industry. I was like, guys, every single day I have a problem that I have to solve that is the hardest problem I've solved in my life. And so every single day of my job is the most anxious day of my life. And it just gets worse every single day. And like one of them interrupted and was like, you just need to get thicker skin. I was like, how is that a useful comment? Like, how do you think you get thicker skin? You don't just manifest it out of nowhere. But honestly, I think as bad as that was, I think I started from a place of privilege, knowing that I'd gone through the Caltech experience. My co-founder had gone through the MIT experience, and both of us knew that we could survive a lot, which is a very useful thing to know at all points in your life. Like, at least I don't have to go to Caltech again, is a thing that I've thought to myself on more than one occasion.
It's what I've heard. I feel like this is becoming a trend from alumni. It's just like, even to the people who don't use their major, it's just like Caltech taught me how to think is one of them, how to like handle complex problems and how to like have this resilience. And you know what? Even if I don't absorb everything from my major, I know for a fact I'm gonna have these two traits. So I think it's very reassuring to know. But yeah, I guess another question, we've talked about some pits. Do you feel like you had a peak at your time at Caltech?
Not really. I can't point to a singular moment that I think was a peak of my Caltech experience. So maybe I'll just give you what was a peak overall experience from Caltech. At no point in my life have I been surrounded by as talented a group of people as I was during undergrad. And I've kind of chased that feeling at times during my career. And it is really invigorating to be surrounded by people who are truly exceptional at things that are tangentially related to what you're doing. And it's been fun also watching how that manifests through their career choices and their various successes as well. That is truly unique about Caltech, the density of talent in one place. It also leads to problems with over a large number of people, I think, have imposter syndrome because of that. But still, if you can get past that, it is a really interesting part of Caltech.
Absolutely. I feel like that point needs to get, I don't know, while you're in it, it's really nice to like step back and acknowledge that. It's really easy to look at the cons and be like, oh, I'm working on this set and I'm just like, all these like geniuses are like just like speeding through it. But like I like just like acknowledging this, like the opportunity you have to just be around people like that think the same, like have just like function on such a high level is so satisfying. But I want to, I guess this is a pivot. How active were you in your house?
I was very active in my house. I was a waiter in Page for a couple of years. I did not go through like the elected position at Caltech, but I was roommates to multiple vice presidents and presidents. I think all three of my non-freshman years, I had leadership as a roommate. I would say I was active in the beer room in Page House. Yeah, I think I was a fairly active member of that house.
Do you think it was supportive for you to have that community while you were at Caltech?
I do. I think it also nurtured some bad behavioral traits in me, but I don't think that's the house's fault. And I don't know what it would have been like to experience Caltech without the housing system, so it's hard to make that theoretical comparison, but I imagine it would have been harder to survive without it.
I definitely hold the same sentiment, and I wonder what the house will do to me for the next 2 years, especially if I stay in its government. Oh my God, it might kill me. But time will tell. So just okay, so you're at Caltech. You've embraced. I don't want to say embrace the suck. It feels like I'm a military person. But you've graduated, you've made it. Did you go directly into a PhD? What did you do? What was your path afterwards?
Yeah, so I didn't go straight into PhD, although I wanted to go straight into PhD. But I took time off to work in a lab as a research associate first. And it was first half of 2009 when I graduated. So finding a job period was difficult. It took me 6 months to find a role. I mean, I was getting turned down for tutoring roles as a fresh Caltech graduate in early 2009 after the economy crashed. So that was an interesting experience. But I spent 2 years as a research associate in a lab working with a research track faculty who then got a tenure track role, and I followed him to continue my research in graduate school. So it was sort of a bridge to my PhD.
What would you say to like I am talking to a lot of current seniors that just didn't get into their grad schools. Like, what would you say to students in that position?
You probably don't feel like it now, but that's probably a good thing. And I'm sure that that's not helpful to hear, but you'll look back and be glad that you didn't get into grad school your first go around, which is almost verbatim what my older sister said to me when I didn't get into grad school my first go around. Like, something's going to happen. Either you're going to meet people or you're going to get to work on a project, or something is going to happen that you wouldn't have gotten to do if you got in your first go around. And I think that was absolutely true for me. What I wish somebody had also told me at the time was, like, make the best of that time you now have before you start your PhD to figure out the labs you want to work in, not the science you want to work on, because that's what rotations are for, and you're going to figure that out through your scientific exploration. Like, the most important thing for picking a PhD lab is the fit with the PI and the fit with the lab mates. So do some informational interviews. Like, you'll be surprised how many people, even PIs, are happy to hop on the phone for 20 minutes with somebody who's thinking about applying to grad school and thinking about their lab in the following years.
I feel like that's very useful. This very useful information. As someone who's seeing all the statistics come out about the amount of people getting dropped from like their physics, PhDs, and everything, just in that, like, it's definitely it's a worry. So knowing someone who was like, and I guess not like an adjacent situation with this like applications and jobs. It's good to hear that like there's still things out there. Hopefully, when the time comes. But did you have any like significant moments around like, I guess, Caltech, PhD, starting your job that changed the trajectory of your career?
Yes, when I met my co-founder, that dramatically changed the trajectory of my career. And my co-founder is Nick Flitzanis. He's the chief research officer at Capsida. We were born 2 days apart. We're both named Nick. My wife likes to joke that I went to postdoc and found my soulmate when I met him. But it really did. He complimented me in so many ways, both skills perspective and personality perspective. It's the first and only time in my career where I've felt like entirely accepted by another individual and appreciated by another individual and pushed to do things that I never would have even thought of doing by myself. And neither of my parents were particularly educated. Both of his parents were biology professors. They were both, here's a fun coincidence, they were both postdocs in Eric Davidson's lab at Caltech back in their careers. And so he grew up in an academic family. His uncle was a professor at MIT while he was there. It was like a family full of biology professors. And so he came into his graduate work at Caltech knowing he didn't want to do academia and was looking to do industry. And ultimately, we decided to found this company together because he thought we could found this company together. I never would have done that without meeting him first. So you never know how lucky you're going to get. Just pure coincidence that we ended up in the same lab together and we got stuck on the same project together, and it dramatically changed the course of my career.
I hope, well, I don't know. I would say I hope to find my soulmate like that, but being an entrepreneur, it does sound quite terrifying, and I don't know if that's quite the dream I have in mind. Something I do want to talk about is that you mentioned you came from, if you don't mind me asking, about your parents weren't as well educated as and I feel like I come from a rural background. I'm from Mississippi, and I definitely experienced some hardship when it came to coming to Caltech. about just a fundamental disconnect between mostly my extended family. They had a sour taste in their mouth about me going to California. Like I just didn't have a huge support system and like robust backing that I feel like a lot of my peers have. Like a lot of them are like have professors as parents, and like it goes back to what you said about not having structure, right? Like if I didn't know what to do, I'm stuck, right? But their parents, they know exactly, they're in the same field, they know the research, they know everything. And like how do you feel like you navigated just that purely? Like did you like, were they like supportive? Like how did you overcome that?
Um, not overly supportive, I would say, and I resonate with what you said. I don't feel like there was a foundation of understanding of what the Caltech experience was like, and the extended family, as an example, extended family when I was in my biology degree in graduate school, actually. And like, you're at Thanksgiving or Christmas and folks are asking like, hey, how's school going? And you give them the elevator pitch of what you're doing. They're like, oh, so like biology, that's like dissecting frogs, right? So that there isn't a foundation of even understanding what the program is that you're in or what the school is that you're going to. And therefore, there isn't even a remote chance that they're going to understand the experience that you're going through. I found it very isolating. I found like there wasn't a support structure that I could talk to. And I don't think I really realized that there was a support structure in my peers until very late. In fact, probably after we finished undergrad. And that's a regret I have, that there wasn't an opportunity to like figure out that support structure existed amongst our peers earlier, prior to graduation. And it's something I encourage a lot of the younger folks who work with me at Capsida now is like, if you're going through something, you should talk to people that you work with about it. I have never regretted opening up to colleagues. I've been disappointed by their reaction, and I've felt like I've lost respect for colleagues based upon how they've reacted to things that are important to me that I'm going through. But I've never regretted sharing that with people, even if their reaction is negative.
I feel like that's very important, like a piece of advice. I feel like I have had so many positive experiences, and even like in my being like 20 years old in my sophomore year, I have realized that mentality of never regretting to like just open up. Even like bad reactions are very telling and allow like for things to be learned. So yeah,
maybe a question for you. Do you feel like that culture is a little bit different now at Caltech? Do you feel like there is a little bit more openness about the shared struggle? Like one of the things that I'm very impressed by the generation below mine is they seem to be more aware of mental health challenges, more supportive of themselves and their peers, and it's less stigmatized. But that's my perception from the outside. What's your experience?
I would definitely say so. I can really only speak to my house. I really like keep like my main like conversations within the house. Like I definitely have friends with outside, but like I've been in really deep conversations with a lot of members of Ricketts House. We attract a lot of people from rural areas and just not the classic Caltech background. And I feel like it's like it's something we talk about like as an entire house. Like we have like 30 people in there like talking about their experiences. I've given advice to Frosh and all these things. So I don't feel like it's as stigmatized as much, at least in the environment that I'm in. It's really nice to have those people to talk to.
Good for you, and good for your generation. I'm glad to hear that.
So I guess I'll go back. I got a little sidetracked. This was something I'm passionate about. So I'll go back to your business. What was the biggest fear that you had going into it?
That answer changed over time. I would say when we started the company, my biggest fear was letting down the folks who had put a lot of trust in us to do something with their investment. And we raised a $50 million round straight out of our postdocs. And I really didn't want to lose $50 million of people's money. So I felt a lot of pressure that the science would work. I felt a lot of pressure that we would deliver on timelines. I felt a lot of pressure, period. You never start a company in the biotech space expecting to succeed. Statistically, it's not in your favor. And as time went on, we were getting closer and closer to actually making something out of this technology. We're getting closer and closer to actually making a therapy that might someday get into patients. And that fear evolved over time to a fear that if this got into patients, that it either A, wouldn't be efficacious, or B, even worse, that it wouldn't be safe. And thankfully, we're in a position where we've gone through all the drug development steps. The FDA has cleared our therapy to go into patients, which I'm very excited about. But even more importantly, I didn't feel like we had to compromise our science to get there. You hear a lot of stories in entrepreneurship about having to compromise the science and prioritize the business because money is a constraint for everyone. And we're very fortunate to not have to do that. I feel like we got to put the best possible package forward. And whether or not it works, that's biology. But I'm very proud of the fact that that fear didn't manifest yet.
Yeah, I feel like the fear of compromising on the science when it comes to biotechnology is a very prominent one, and it's very exciting that you've gotten FDA approved. I feel like that's one of the big things. I feel like they go through a lot of testing, so that's super exciting.
Thank you.
So, how do you currently engage with the Caltech community? I ask this because do members of the Caltech community provide something valuable that you feel like other groups of people don't understand or get you with?
Yeah, I like to be useful, and I have found that I'm more useful to graduate students and postdocs and professors than I am to undergraduates. So I engage primarily through the Office of Technology Transfer. I advise on some of the startup opportunities that are coming out of Caltech. I actually helped start another company last year coming out of Michael Elowitz's lab at Caltech, and on the board of that company. And that's been really rewarding to me to be able to take my capsida experience and provide some insights and some advice to folks who are in the similar kind of journey of taking an academic project and spinning it out into a company. So it's a tangential answer to your question. I've not engaged much, if at all, with the undergraduate community since leaving undergraduate at Caltech. This is probably the longest I've talked to a friend group member, Caltech undergrad, since I was an undergrad, but I would like to.
That's exciting. I will definitely call you up on that. But I guess even in the sense of you've been at an undergraduate for 15 or 10, 15 years, right? And you're still friends with current Caltech students. Is there do you just like them as people, or do you feel like Caltech attracts a fundamental type of person?
Oh, geez. There's two of them on this call. I don't know that I like them that much. It's you're certainly not married and probably not getting married anytime soon. You marry somebody because you like them, you love them, and then your relationship grows and you find you appreciate them for reasons you never got into the relationship for in the first place. And nobody is their fully formed person as an undergrad. So I think it's an unrealistic expectation to think that you're going to have a lot in common with people you went to school with 15 years ago. But what I have found interesting is that despite maybe not having a foundation of commonality with my friend group as much as I did as an undergrad, the shared experience is really bonding, and you have that shared core foundation of the Caltech experience that does, it's at least in my experience, lead to sort of a lifelong friendship, even if you do grow in separate ways. And I do mostly like these people still.
That's good to hear. Hopefully I'll get to keep some of these friends. I think the trauma bond will last through the years.
There's something incredibly powerful about going through something and knowing that you're not going through it alone. That's something that really resonates with me as well. I feel like that's part of why I developed a really strong bond with the friends that I went through undergrad with, is at some point, and it wasn't in the first year, but at some point I realized that other people also were like, wait, I don't belong here. Like I'm not smart enough or talented enough or as educated as everyone else. And everyone else belongs at Caltech, but I somehow snuck my way in here. And it took a while to understand that other people felt that way. And then once we kind of like looked around and realized, wait, we're all kind of suffering similarly, and we're reacting to it in very different ways, but suffering similarly, it allowed us to get close in a way that really wasn't possible before that. But maybe a follow-up question for you on the podcast front, like who's your target audience? What's the outcome from this that would make you happy?
Target audience, I feel like definitely current students at Caltech, of course. When I was doing my alumni panel, I targeted second and third year students because I feel like administration really like worries about first year students, and they're coming into this new school is really rigorous, and they're really scared about it. But they're in pass fail. They're gonna be fine. Well, they're usually gonna be fine, right? I know I had some problems my freshman year, but nothing was more disheartening than hitting my major classes and then sucking in my major classes. It's like, this is what I'm supposed to be good at, and I'm just not as good as other people. And that was really, really disheartening. And I feel like that's really what I kind of like. So that's really the main group that I want to target, is like the ones that like when you start losing like feel like they've lost support, and also to reach out to more alumni too. I feel like hearing like that current students are listening to this and like that it's a need, make alumni that have the sour taste of Caltech and have these experiences want to come back and share like their experiences, and it just like builds this community of like you had to like Caltech sucked a little bit, and like we have people who've survived it and the people who are currently surviving it, and they want to talk to each other, they want to interact with each other, and like that's really the goal. It's like for like both sides, because I talked to it was seminar day this weekend, and then like I talked to some alumni and they're like, my friends won't come because they have a sour taste in their mouth, and that's just really frustrating because I feel like Caltech caters to alumni and undergraduates very separately, and that just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like when you're just trying to like, because I feel like alumni, they want to talk to the undergraduates, they want to know how their houses are doing, and like current students want to know how they've been successful, especially in like I'm scared about getting into grad school, considering everything that's happening, hearing that things are going to be okay, and if you don't get in, it's not the end of the world. The only people who can give you that reassurance are the alumni, and just like letting people know how like current students know how open alumni are to just talking is it's really important to me.
I think it's a fantastic goal. And I think also letting alumni know that there's an avenue to speak with students. I mean, my most common interaction with Caltech undergrads is when I get calls to make donations to the alumni fund. And you don't use that as an opportunity to engage in discourse. You use that as an opportunity to get your credit card out. And I think I at least think there's probably a lot of alumni that would like to be able to give time back as opposed to money back to the school, and feel like they could have an impact on the students there as opposed to the administration. And that might give folks an opportunity to both engage in a way that gets past the sour taste in their mouth and potentially helps alleviate some of those bad feelings that have lingered over time. I like that. Okay, cool.
Okay. In conclusion, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed being on the podcast.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for the invitation, Claire. I would love to be useful in any way that is helpful to you all, especially if it doesn't require oodles of time. But I'm always happy to be useful. I'm also happy to chat with folks that maybe listen to this and they're like, oh, I'm a biology major and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. Let me talk to that guy. I'm happy for I'm happy for people to be put in touch with me. Yeah, I had fun.
That's amazing. I had a blast, and I will if I run into a biologist, they're like, what the hell am I doing? I'm gonna be like, I know someone who didn't know either.
Excellent.
So now we are sitting post-interview. It's the post-game. What do they call that? I don't watch sports. Anyway, I enjoyed this podcast. I feel like it's nice to hear someone with the perspective of a sour taste with Caltech, because you know they're out there. It's 4 years of absolute being dragged through the mud, in my opinion. And just hearing someone who came out of it still finding the experience valuable and identifying that they would not have found the same success anywhere else, I think is really important.
Yeah, I think that it's unfortunately maybe a little too common that right out of Caltech, you feel kind of a little beaten down afterwards, or your plans right after don't exactly pan out. But, I think Nick is a great example of the resilience that I do think you get going through Caltech and figuring out that things don't always work out immediately, but you can push through it. You have the grit and the resolve to really make things happen for yourself. And like that, the appreciation for Caltech might come a little later, but I think in Nick's case, it is still ultimately there.
All right, I'm going to pause you guys a little bit.
Just a PSA to all of our listeners. Riley, our producer, has a lot of interesting tidbits.
One could even call them hot takes.
You might hear her every so often throughout the podcast. It's like little Easter eggs.
The two of you are so positive about Caltech still. I would not have said that the important thing that Nick said was that there's a point of going through Caltech. I mean, he hated Caltech. I think it is an important message from him that when he graduated, he felt like there was no positive outcome possible after Caltech. So you person out there, the student going through this, you're not alone. We're not saying you're going to love Caltech by the end.
But you're still a capable person. I don't know how to because you're talking to the most down on the dumps about themselves people out there. It's it's okay, you'll do great. I don't know how to
But there is a future. That sounds like exactly why we wanted Nick to be there, right? He's still this really impressive person. And it took him some healing. People who were extremely bitter and very unhappy, deeply unhappy after Caltech, found success in the end. And it's possible for you too. And there are alums that might be able to talk to you also. Don't feel like you have to hold this feeling in, because it will be very familiar to a lot of other really smart, really successful people out there in the world.
This reminds me a little bit. I don't know if you've heard this. I'm going to butcher it, but it's the Stanford grad student, Caltech grad student. Do you know what I'm referring to?
No.
They're at grad school, right? And they have this project to give to a professor. So the Stanford person comes in, they're like, it's the best thing that's ever been created. This, it does this, and this. And the professor's like, cool. And then next, the Caltech student comes in. They're running their hands through their hair. They're stressed. They're like, I just didn't have the time. I know it's not good. I know. I understand. This is what I would do. I'm sorry. Please understand. Works 10 times better than the Stanford grad students could have ever dreamed of. And I think it's so funny. I've heard multiple alumni tell me this story because it's a good way to express, I guess, while also hating on Stanford, that your ego is rock bottom after coming out of Caltech.
One thing that, Nick also mentioned that I appreciate a lot is just the role of luck. There are some things that, aren't beyond your control. You have to kind of be, prepared for it. I think the skills and experience Nick had helped, but I think he was pretty forthright that some stuff that worked out really well for him just wasn't really in his control at all. And I think it's really useful to be honest about that.
It's a scary factor. I guess it offers a lot of hope, right? I guess I can just sit on my hands and maybe something will come along. It's definitely not the message, but it's just but what if let's not get into that. I don't.
Well, yeah, it's funny. It's not useful to plan on luck or bad luck. If I'm not lucky, then I won't, be successful or something. I think it's just a way to provide a little perspective that might prevent you from spiraling a little bit if you're in the habit of comparing yourself too much to other people.
During the podcast, Nick brought up a very big thing on people's minds right now. grad school. Even as a sophomore, going into my junior year, everyone's talking about it, especially considering the current climate around everything. And I'm watching my seniors go through crises because of it. Like, so they're just not getting in, they put so much work in, and what do you do in the face of all this unknown? One of my closest friends thought that going to Caltech was pointless and that all the hard work didn't matter because he would have just ended up in the same grad school either way. That's a hard place to be in. So, Mason, do you have any advice?
Yeah, I mean, so Nick found a way to turn it around, but when you're in it, nothing feels helpful. I don't know if I have any advice to make that go easier. But even if you don't get in, it's not the end of the world. You can apply again. You can take that time, the year it takes before the next kind of application cycle, to work, build your resume. Nick did that, but like I have other friends who did that too. Like they worked in research labs before applying to, like in between undergrad and applying to grad school or med school, even if they like didn't get in the first time around, like they did that and then were able to apply again and get in. It's not like a one and done thing, right? You have more than one shot.
That's true. I feel like, I guess, like, to reference the conversations I've had and just like the whole point of this podcast, I feel like in the face of not getting into grad school, about to face the unknown that is the world post Caltech, and you're not getting these positive experiences, even though you went through hell for the past 4 years, it's kind of like, how do you manage? Maybe you don't look back at Caltech and it was a good thing. Maybe it just wasn't for you. But I guess that's kind of like what this podcast is like aiming to discover. And yeah, I feel like this is just the journey of the podcast. Maybe in a few more I'll be able to give more of a coherent talk. Like, I don't know. This was an amazing podcast, at least to me. I learned a lot.
I think I'm grading us on a curve, and I think we did an excellent job.
I learned a lot. I got some things out of here. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast. And we hope you will join us for our next episode. We'll have another interview with another alum. So hang in there and keep joining us for Life After Caltech.
Life After Caltech is brought to you by Claire Ellison, Riley Kwong, and Mason Smith, with additional production help by Paula Viganalin. The music is called Get Ready to Win by Pamela Yuen from the Free Music Archive under the Creative Commons license. Life After Caltech is in no way affiliated with or approved by the California Institute of Technology or any relevant associations. Thanks for listening.